Okay, we've been talking a lot about independence and dependent in our algebra class. Just basically that's input and outputs. And expanding our vocabulary, we're going to take those and apply them to function notation. So if x is the independent variable, or the input, and y is the dependent variable, or the output, then function notation for y is f parentheses x. And we say that f of x, where f is the name of the function. So my orange sign down here just sums up this whole lesson. And that is that function notation f of x means the same thing as y. Okay? It's just a fancy way of writing y. The reason we have two different names, y as an output and f of x as an output, they're both outputs, is going to be explained in the next slide. Sometimes we have different rules or functions or process, whichever one you want to call them. So if we had different rules, like 2x plus 1 is one of our rules. And then maybe we had 3x squared is another rule. And maybe we had another rule that was x divided by 3. Well, all three of those rules could be put in the calculator as y. 2x plus 1 equals y, 3x squared equals y, x divided by 3 equals y. And in fact, our calculator can call them different y's, y1, y2, y3. But when we get into real problem situations, story problems, those rules tend to get mixed up. So we want to give them different names, kind of like Fred, George, and Hilda. Except we would call it f of x is 2x plus 1. G of x is 3x squared. And h of x, or Hilda, is x divided by 3. That way we can kind of keep the rules maybe a little bit straighter in the context of a word problem. So when we use function notation right here, when we use function notation and not the calculator notation, all that means is that we're going, if we had to find f of 2, okay, that would mean we're going to put a 2 into the f function, which in this case is 2x plus 1. And then we're going to come out with a value for the Fred function, or f of x. And in this case, that value would be 2 parentheses 2 plus 1. Okay? So we're just substituting in the 2 as our input for the function. So we've been practicing with our word problems with independent and dependent when we did that cut and glue, and reading word problems backwards and forwards, either 2x plus 1 equals f of x or y, or f of x or y equals 2x plus 1. They mean the same thing. But in the old days, we just basically used our input as x and our output as y, And we still had this process column here, or function, or rule, that maybe you had to draw in and maybe you didn't. Okay? So we have X is our input, our process, and our Y. But now, instead of using Y, we just use f of x as our output. Nowadays, we get to use the calculator to evaluate our functions. And when we use the calculator to evaluate our functions, we have to be very careful, because the calculator, as smart as it is, it's only as smart as the operator. Calculator does not know PEMDAS, the order of operations. So when we want to find the f of 2, we would say 2 is the input, and we would go to press a 2, and you better use parentheses and not times. Open parentheses, 2 plus 1, and then we hit enter. Oops, I'm running out of room. Okay, so if we were wanting to find the g of 2, we want to do 3, press the open parentheses, and then we have to put a 2, close parentheses, then we have to press that button that has the X, the T, the theta, and the N on it. We have to press that button, and then we have to press X squared button. Okay, the X squared button. Then you press enter, and that will find the G of 2. That means we're going to use the George function and put a 2 in it. If we want to find the value for the H, or the Hilda function, the H of X, the H of X means that we're going to have to use grouping, because when we have division like this, we always have to use grouping, especially when we substitute. So if I want to, find the H of, almost forgot, 2, I'm going to use parentheses, open, 2, close parentheses, then I hit the divide key, and a 3, and press enter. This should help you out to evaluate functions on your assignments. Always remember to use parentheses in the calculator, because it does, when you substitute, because it does not know the order of operations.